On November the 16th, 2013, hunters trekking through the dense woods of the Saint-Bois Mountains came across something deeply unsettling. Lying face down on the forest floor were 3 skeletal bodies arranged side by side, 2 adults and a child. Next to the smallest frame, a girl's, someone had placed a flower. The remains were so decomposed that even determining the cause of death would prove impossible. It took forensic testing until July 2014 to confirm what many had suspected for years. The bones belonged to 44-year-old Bobby Jameson, his wife 40-year-old Sherilyn, and their 6-year-old daughter, Madison. They were found just 2.7 miles away from where their pickup truck had been discovered abandoned in 2009. But if the discovery of their bodies closed one chapter, it opened another. What had happened to the Jamesons, and why had they died out in the wilderness in such strange circumstances? Back in October 2009, only days after the family set out for a trip to the mountains, their white pickup truck was discovered on a dirt road near Red Oak, Oklahoma. Oddly, the vehicle wasn't reported to police until October 17th, more than a week later. When investigators finally opened it, what they found was baffling. The truck was fully functional and still had fuel in the tank. Inside, there was a collection of belongings that made little sense. Sherilyn's purse, Bobby's wallet, IDs, both adults' cell phones, a GPS device, maps, coats, and even $32,000 in cash stored in a bank bag. These were not the sorts of items a family would typically abandon. Even stranger, their family dog, starving and malnourished, was discovered alive inside the vehicle. But certain items were missing. A brown briefcase Sherilyn had been seen carrying into the truck on their home security footage was nowhere to be found. Neither was Sherilyn's .22 caliber pistol, which she normally kept inside the vehicle. Cell phone records added another eerie detail. They showed that the family had driven to the mountain, left the truck, walked a short distance, and at one point Bobby used his phone to take a picture of Madison. In the photo, some people later suggested the young girl looked frightened. After this, the Jamesons returned to the truck, drove a little farther down the road, and then abandoned it, locking their dog inside before vanishing into the woods forever. When police searched the Jamesons' home, they discovered something even more disturbing than the truck. Security cameras outside the house had captured hours of footage of Bobby and Sherilyn on the day they prepared for their trip. In the grainy video, the couple made about 20 trips back and forth from the house to the truck. Sometimes they carried items, sometimes they carried nothing at all. At other times, they seemed to simply stop in their tracks, standing motionless for minutes at a time. Their movements struck investigators, and later the public, as strangely mechanical, almost trance-like. To some, they looked like people under the influence of drugs. To others, they looked as though they were following some kind of silent instructions, or perhaps interacting with an unseen third person just out of the camera's view. It was haunting footage, and when placed against the backdrop of their sudden disappearance, it only added to the sense that something deeply unusual was unfolding in the Jamesons' lives. On October 8th, 2009, the Jamesons set out with their 6-year-old daughter, Madison, and their dog for Panola Mountain near Red Oak, Oklahoma. The family was considering purchasing a 40-acre plot of remote land in the area, and they had actually visited the site the previous day as well. That afternoon, they met briefly with an associate of the property's owner. After that, all trace of the Jamesons disappeared. When they failed to return home, no alarm was raised right away. After all, the Jamesons were known by relatives and friends for their reclusive tendencies and long absences. But by the time their truck was discovered, it was clear that something was seriously wrong. To understand how events reached this point, investigators looked back into the Jamesons' lives. Bobby Jameson had met Sherilyn in 2002. A year later, in 2003, Bobby's life changed dramatically when he was involved in a motor vehicle accident. The crash left him with a severe back injury and lifelong chronic pain. Depression followed, and he was unable to work. His only source of income became disability payments. Despite these challenges, Bobby and Sherilyn married in July 2004. The very next month, in August, their daughter Madison was born. The family lived in Eufaula, Oklahoma, a small city about 2 hours east of Oklahoma City. Sherilyn also had a son, Colton, from her first marriage, and for a time the blended family lived together. But tragedy soon struck again. In 2007, Sherilyn's sister died suddenly after being stung by a bee. The loss devastated Sherilyn, and her mental health began to decline sharply afterward. She was eventually diagnosed with bipolar disorder but struggled with consistent treatment. In July 2009, matters grew worse. During one psychiatric hospitalization, Sherilyn's ex-husband gained custody of Colton. Not only did Sherilyn lose her son, but the child support payments she relied on ended. Financial pressure on the household intensified. Friends and relatives described the Jamisons as increasingly withdrawn. Sometimes they would cut off all contact with friends and family for months at a time. Sherilyn, in particular, was described as someone who could vanish from communication for a year and then reappear as if nothing had happened. By 2009, Bobby and Sherilyn's marriage was faltering badly. Friends described the relationship as in ruins. When investigators searched the home after their disappearance, they found journals filled with Sherilyn's angry writings and an 11-page handwritten letter addressed to Bobby. In it, she accused him of neglecting Madison and demanded a divorce. The letter painted a picture of a household filled with bitterness and mistrust. Yet even in the midst of marital conflict, Bobby and Sherilyn were pursuing a dramatic change. They had recently taken an interest in a 40-acre plot of land on Panola Mountain. Their plan, if they purchased it, was to move a large storage container they owned onto the property and live inside it as their new home. The area around the mountain, however, had a reputation. Some residents were known to be involved in methamphetamine production. Whether this connection had any bearing on the Jamisons' plans or their fate remains uncertain. Around the same period, the couple withdrew Madison from public school to homeschool her. Some speculated this was preparation for the move to the mountains, as though they were cutting ties with their current life and preparing to live in isolation. After the Jamisons disappeared, countless theories sprang up trying to make sense of it all. Some thought the $32,000 in cash found in their truck hinted at a drug deal, given the area's meth activity and the family's gaunt appearances, though friends insisted drugs didn't fit their lives. Others pointed to family tensions, as Bobby had filed for a protective order against his father months earlier, alleging threats, violence, and shady connections, though police later cleared him. Sherilyn's mother believed a cult might have targeted them because of Sherilyn's interest in spirituality, seances, and the occult, while the Jamisons themselves seemed haunted by supernatural beliefs. Bobby claimed to see spirits on the roof and searched for special bullets, and Sherilyn said she and Madison could communicate with the dead. An eerie atmosphere friends reportedly felt when visiting their home. Some speculated that Sherilyn's untreated bipolar disorder could have led to a murder-suicide, though her mother doubted she could harm Madison. Despite all these ideas, nothing explains why they left behind their cash, IDs, phones, and dog, why a briefcase and pistol went missing, or who placed a flower beside Madison's remains.